Hello, my friend, and welcome. This is your moment. I'm Katarina Miletic, and you are listening to the podcast that will challenge you to think with your soul and believe that your only power is inside you. Hi, Christina. Welcome.
Hey, Katarina.
It isn't every day in the oversaturated communications world, especially on social media, that your path crosses with another person who is genuinely interested in a conversation with no strings attached. The difference between the blandness of blah, blah, blah of the small talk is blending in the background, and actual real talk is so refreshing and rare. Just being open to have a conversation leads to being heard and establishing a connection, which can then be explored, examined, and enjoyed without worrying about influencing its path or outcome. Christina, I am absolutely thrilled to have you on This Is Your Moment podcast as a guest. And I would love to know, as an entrepreneur myself, what makes you most passionate about communications?
Well, I think that at its core, it allows us to connect with each other, and that goes between nonverbal and verbal communication. It goes into written communication and even just body language. It all flows into understanding emotions, understanding thought processes, understanding everything, and so it just communication bridges the gap further and allows for you to really understand what's going on with the person or even animal, and how they communicate. And I think it's important for people to really take that into account and to almost take a step back and to maybe even what they expect people to say and do and just observe for a second. And that's why knowing many languages is powerful. That's why knowing but understanding body language and behaviors is powerful, because it all creates compassion, understanding, empathy. So
For sure. I mean, it just opens up this great possibility to explore further. We seem to be focused on meeting our ideal client that we almost don't allow for the possibility of any other relationship developing. Aren't connections of friendship just as important for our networking, collaborating on different projects, creating with those whose missions are closely aligned with ours, and simply remaining curious about the bigger picture, just growing in contribution?
yeah, it all comes down to business is all about relationships, and it is all about communication as well, but especially about relationships. And when you go into when so many people go into business, some people started to make a difference, but sometimes we lose sight of the bigger picture, which is this humanness, this relationship, and it's foundationally important to to make sure that we align with our with who we are and who we're trying to serve, but not necessarily let the money, let the sale get in the way. Because when we're not aligned, when we're not in line with exactly who we are, and keeping keeping our relationship with ourself actually as the highest priority, because what we put out is also what we get back. And so if we're expecting take instead of allowing us to be our our full authentic selves, when we are our full authentic selves, we draw people in that resonate with that. And so then that person becomes our ideal client in a way. And that's where I think that people miss the mark, is in aligning with themselves first. They can then create better relationships with other people as well.
I could not agree with you more. That is also my conclusion as well. And I think they go hand in hand. We have to look after and grow ourselves as we grow our business. How important would you say our energy is when it comes to communication?
It's it's everything, you know. It's absolutely everything, you know. When you're when it comes down to, you know, like, I'll just give a perfect example. It's like when you go into a conversation with somebody, and you're not necessarily, and you would ideally like to work with them, you know, if you're not necessarily feeling confident, and you feel like you're not really going to get it, 9 times out of 10, because of the energy you're projecting out there, people will feel that there might be something wrong with this. People, more often than not, people can detect, people can understand that, you know, oh, this is something I should shy away from. This is something that I shouldn't do, and this is something that I should do. Everything is energy. The way that people resonate, the way that people don't, what we put out there, and being mindful. Going back to what we were just talking about, that's why our relationship with ourselves is important. Because if we're not aware of our energy that we're putting out there, chaos ensues. So
Absolutely. We can be misunderstood, or we can project the message in the wrong way, even though the message can have one meaning. But if we come with a different energy, it can project something else. And then, as you say, like chaos ensues from that. Um, Whenever I talk with entrepreneurs, Christina, I'm always curious about the daily habits and the rituals. And that really keeps in line with the conversation we're having right here. How do you keep on top form mentally, physically, emotionally? I would love if you're able to share with us what helps you stay in your power.
so before COVID started, I was swimming 4 days a week, and I was going to the gym, you know, 2 out of the days of the week. And but then when COVID happened, I ended up actually, you know, shifting everything to doing a weightlifting, a couple of days a week. You know, doing more what we swimmers call as dry land exercise. So it's basically, you know, toning the body on land instead of in the water. You know, I stretch, and I make sure to do some chakra balancing, and you know, a couple other things. But it's mainly all about, you know, practicing breath control, and you know, starting my morning off right with, you know, when I'm able to wake up early enough, I actually, you know, sit at my desk, and then I look out into, and I watch and drink my tea, and you know, I'm grateful for the day. I'm grateful uh, for for what's to come, uh, and all of these, you know, the gratitude, you know, mantras, things like that, help me, you know, keep the focus at its highest point. So that's a little bit about it.
That's definitely aligned again with things that I practice and do, and I see great benefits through it as well. Only my journey started a little bit before COVID when I lost my corporate job. So suddenly I did have time for myself after a very, very long time in my life. I'm always happy to hear when people are practicing mindfulness, when they take care of themselves, when they take part of their day and dedicate it just to this inward journey, because I think it's so crucially important. Um,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about Catalyst and what you do. at a point of contact with your business, and this is all just because I'm so curious, it is evident that you lead a close-knit and a happy team. That is fascinating to me, as I have always been one-person business, as I'm a artist. You can see the paintings here behind me. So I love partnering with other creative entrepreneurs to bring projects together. But I'm genuinely interested to know, how did this just naturally happen? Was this something you actually designed, you wanted to do, you wanted to build a team? What was that journey like for you?
Yeah, so I'm a I'm a fairly, just to start out, like I'm a fairly intuitive person, and I'm also a I'm like really good at delegating, which I know most people aren't, and I actually eventually plan on helping people learn how to delegate properly. But so with that though, I started my I started my business on a mission, and it just became one of those things where once I realized that I needed somebody who had a nice camera, who was really good at videography. I hired it out, and then as the needs grew for entrepreneurs and the business needs, I hired people. And that's really what it came down to. At its core, I recognize that there's a lot that I don't know, and there's a lot that I don't necessarily care to know, and that I'll just leave it up to. Now I know a lot, but in terms of doing, I'd much rather. And most people are really the other way around, where they'd much rather do all the work themselves and have that level of control. Whereas I would much rather have a team of people to do things for me, do things to grow the business, and then me be able to work on these relationships and connections. Because here's the thing, as long as you're doing all the work yourself, it's really hard to grow your business in a way that gives you a lifestyle that gives you freedom. So while I'm maybe closing deals, like my team is working on something that I don't have to work on myself. So it gives me the freedom to not have to be working in the business, but more on the business. So that's pretty much it. It just developed over time, and I have a very because I'm really intuitive, and this is again why I want to eventually help people with this, is I'm very in tune. I ask really specific questions when I'm hiring people, and again, going back into alignment, I make sure that they, as people, are aligned with the mission of the business as well.
That is so important. And I think there is so much room actually in that area, that there is a gap in the learning process, where you learn how to do things either yourself or you hire this help out, but how to properly build a team, I have not come across that lesson yet. I think it would be a valuable contribution out there, and I certainly know it would help me as well, to look into this possibility. Because as a visionary, sometimes it's hard when you realize you have all of these other balls in the air, and you have to look after every single aspect of your business yourself. It's hard.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm waiting for I'm going to get a couple of certifications before I really go after that. But once I have the certifications, I definitely think that, just like you said, building that close-knit team is yeah, I think I can help a lot of people, be able to live the life that they want with this. So
It could be another option when we think about career and employment, into how we want to make a living. Creative side is overlooked, at large, because people are just looking at high-end goals. But just to have a lifestyle that you want to have, just to know that there is an alternative to what we traditionally know, I think it's a great thing and a great step forward. So we need a lot of help there in educating the new generation, I think, in this new way. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about your current projects, Christina, and what is new in the pipeline for this year?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit. So one of the big things is that, you know, we're working on really delving deep and not only so we started something where we create these little offers to help entrepreneurs with what they need. So, like, for example, one of the offers was a focus workbook so that they could know what they should delegate out first. All these little workbooks to help people, you know, like, look inward. We're working on. We have quite a few of those in the pipeline, just to help and get people what they need. But then also with that, you know, we're also developing a course specifically on, you know, authenticity and storytelling and you know, bringing your true self into your personal brand and your business, which is something that I'm known for. And so showing people how to do that. There's going to be an online course for that, and everything else is just you know, to kind of depending on, you know, COVID, you know, kind of going away in terms of, you know, if we start doing live events again, if we start doing, you know, a bunch of other things that were in the pipeline for 2020 that we had to show. So that's really exciting. Once we can really go hard on those, you know, I think everything is gonna come together how it will. So, and then, you know, 2022 probably more going to be about, you know, delegation and making an online course to help people break out of the solopreneur life. So, but, you know, it'll depend on what people want. I can make a course about either. So I'm just testing the waters right now and seeing what people want. And yeah, that's kind of it.
That's a great mission that you are on, and certainly can help in these specific areas. As I said, it sounds so niche from when you explain it like that. Uh, I'll make sure to put the links that you think are most appropriate for people to actually either join your community or check out your website and your work and see whether this is something that they want to explore, because you do work with entrepreneurs and most of the audience of this podcast falls into that category. Now, lastly, I believe that communication is like a dance, much like life itself. It is a path that unfolds and invites us to go further into discovering it, like we did just here in this conversation. This requires us to remain present, and it requires a skill that isn't taught at school. It's called active listening. I'm sure you're aware of this. So since this is the last question, and I'm sure you're not aware that it's actually a tradition for me to ask a question that's a little bit out there at the end of the podcast episode. So here comes yours. Let's imagine for a moment that you're teaching a class on this very subject, which isn't too far from your mind, is it? What would be the main 2 to 3 points that you would want to imprint on students' minds?
In terms of teaching people active listening, I think the fundamentals of active listening are listening, and with that comes pausing. It comes, you know, not trying to, you know, jump the gun and think that you know what the person's going to say. Actually, genuinely, not necessarily preparing your response, not necessarily, that. So with that comes the pause. That's the first thing that I would say, and not pausing your mind, pausing your thoughts, and just actively engaging with this person that's across from you, and trying to communicate something to you. Because whenever you do that, you can also pay attention to body language and other factors that go into that. So I would say that the second point in terms of active listening is asking the right questions. There's a lot of things a lot of people do that they try to make assumptions about the directions that people are going in. They listen to they listen to the words and not necessarily the meaning. Again, I would say ask really open-ended questions that are not based in assumption, that are actually more about understanding the direction that the person is going in. And then I think that I said the third one that I wanted to touch on already, but it's completely lost at this point. So those are the three I would say that I think are pretty important. So
That is so fantastic and valuable. And you definitely saved the best for last. I have enjoyed every moment of this podcast. But this closing answer just reveals your wisdom. It goes so deep. And it's true. You have to remain genuinely curious, genuinely interested in to hear what the person is saying, and then just slow it down and allow yourself the time to digest the information and to respond genuinely, again, authentically, how you feel. And the conversation like this and every other conversation in your life is then possible and enjoyable. Thank you so much for being my guest, Christina. I wish you all the best, and I do hope to see you back soon.
thank you.
Thanks.